Chris McDonald with you on this Monday night, the final Monday night of November, the 27th day of November, 2023. We're grateful to have you on this beautiful start to another week, and we're got a brand new applet. I want to thank the young man, Pasilo. He is one of my designers. He's off of Fiverr. Does such a good job for me, and he's working on tweaking that a little bit, but I think he did a good job. I'll give him an A minus, A plus for effort, and but I like that new intro. It's sort of going to be a precursor of where we're going with the network, the news network, and so forth as we get into next year. And this network you're on tonight is the news network. It's not our faith show. It's not our faith network, and it's a little separate than that, but we're grateful to have you tonight on our regular McFiles broadcast. And if you're not subscribed to our channel, please do. Pass it around. Please share it out. The best way you can help us, folks, is not by putting fire in the house and saying amen and all that, which we appreciate all the comments and all the kind words. But the way you can help us right now, the greatest, is to send the show to as many people as you can. Have them subscribe to it. We're going to be making some changes at the first of the year. And everyone is going to enjoy the changes. Trust me. They're going to be for the best, and we're going in a new direction in many ways come January. But tonight it's the regular McFiles broadcasting, and we've got a brand new guest, a very, very special guest, Ruth Wasserman Lande. She's from Israel. She is the former advisor to the late Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. I respected Prime Minister Peres. I respected all of these Israeli prime ministers. There's been a few that were very left. Ehud Barak comes to mind. Others have tried to give Israel's land away under pressure of the United States, and they have failed at every turn. Peres was more of I consider a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. Certainly wasn't Benjamin Netanyahu, but he always had Israel's best interest at heart. He was a friend of the United States. I will be back at the end of the show tonight. We may come back for a afterthought separate, because I don't want to ruin Ruth's interview with stuff that I've got to say tonight, because I got a lot of things on my heart about what's going on. So right after the show, which is probably going to run about 45 minutes. It'll run us probably at about 9:30. We're going to take about a 15-minute break, and then I'm going to be back on for about 45 minutes. Wishful thinking probably, but I've got a few afterthoughts tonight that I want to share with you separately than the regular show. Please share the show out tonight. Please subscribe and like our network if you can. You're going to enjoy Miss Ruth. She's a precious, precious lady. She's going to be back. We've been communicating, and her family is a very precious family in Israel tonight, and she's very well spoken for what's going on. We're going to be talking tonight about this hostage situation. Now, this was pre-recorded, I think, on Friday of last week or Thursday. I can't remember which. Maybe Wednesday. I don't know. But it was recorded last week. So some of the information you hear tonight may be a little dated. She was not aware of the actual hostages being released. They were going to be the next day, and there was a little delay in it over the weekend. So please understand as you're listening to it. Listen, we're grateful for you. If you're on Facebook tonight, no chat while we're doing the interview. We'll open the chat up a little bit more during the afterthought segment, 15 minutes after the completion of this network show tonight. So please respect our guest and respect this network. I know you do. We appreciate that, and so forth. And listen, we're grateful you're with us tonight. We really are. You're going to enjoy this interview, and you're going to get a lot out of it. Sit back and relax. A brand new guest to the McFiles network tonight, Ruth Wasserman Lande from Israel tonight, and her heart concerning these hostages and what's going on in the Middle East. You're going to enjoy this. The former advisor to former Prime Minister, the late former Prime Minister, Shimon Peres. What an honor to have her on the network tonight. Here's Ruth. We'll be back later tonight. And a good evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this special McFiles pre-recorded broadcast. We're always grateful to have new guests with us, and this is a very, very special guest. And this is Ruth Lande. She is a former advisor to the late Prime Minister Shimon Peres of Israel, and she's got several other functions in the Knesset and part of the Blue-White Party there. And we're going to introduce you to her tonight. But we brought her on because we've got several things we want to share, discuss with her, as concerning the things that are going on in the nation of Israel and abroad. Sarah, Ruth, I want to keep calling you Sarah for some reason. It's Ruth. Ruth, it is almost exactly. It is a great pleasure to have you tonight. Welcome to the McFiles, friend. And listen, we're very, very excited and honored to have you tonight on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be on, and thank you for having me.
Good deal. Listen, first thing I want to discuss with you, we're going to, at the end, I'll let you sort of tell everybody sort of some of the things you do in Israel. But I do want to ask you, first of all, the breaking news as of this broadcast has been the plea deal with the hostages that the Israeli Knesset has reached. They basically agreed to the terms of it. Basically, the bottom line is Israel is going to get 50 hostages back. The Hamas situation, they get 150, 48 Pauls in this fighting. And I'm just curious from your perspective, and we're going to talk a lot about other things, but in this situation with this deal, how do you feel about that? I know I've talked to a lot of people across the spectrum of intelligence and military people, and I get a mixed bag. I mean, we want the hostages to come home. We want people to be safe, but it just seems there's a high price tag that's attached to this. And, you know, I don't trust Hamas past the screen right here, and I know you don't either. And it just makes me wonder what the end game is this going to be. But from your perspective, and maybe the nation's perspective, is this something that everybody's on board with in Israel?
So in general, it's a very simple question, but it's the most complicated question in the world at the same time. There is a contract between the country and the governance, the government, the leadership, and so on, the elected leadership, and the people. In our country, as you and your audience know, we have obligatory military service. We all send our children to the military, boys and girls at the age of 18. We give them to the country. All of us do the obligatory military service, many of us more than what is necessary. I was an officer, many others were as well. We give to the country. There is an unwritten contract between the citizens of Israel and the government or the leadership, basically saying that we give you everything and you protect us. And it's almost a bond that is beyond any other democratic country because of this phenomenon. So when we lose, God forbid, one soldier, the entire nation is crying because we know it's everybody's child. And tomorrow, God forbid, it can be your child, the next day, the other one's child. When something like this happens, and this is the first ever incident that something, I cannot even begin to describe the heinous atrocities that were perpetrated, but I believe at this stage that you and the audience are aware of the truly horrifying deeds that were perpetrated on October 7th. But the fact that 240 people, amongst them children, elders, women, were savagely abducted, many of them from their own beds, and taken to the most horrific place underground, held by horrific terrorists. This is something that if the government does not bring them back, it breaks this contract between the citizens and the government of Israel.
Right.
It's everybody. It's everybody's people. It's everybody's children. You see, we sanctify life. The Hamas knows this, manipulates this, and uses this. But we cannot change the fact that we sanctify life. God forbid, when there were terrorist attacks in Israel, you know, we didn't leave the scene, as it were, for people to come and see the blood and the death and no. We cleaned it up. The next day, if it was a restaurant, the restaurant would be open. You know, we sanctify life. We try to live. That's what the Jewish people throughout history did. God knows, we were persecuted a lot throughout history. And every time there was a resilience in the nation, and we sanctify life. It's good and it's bad. It has its weight. It has its disadvantages. And one of the disadvantages is the fact that, as you say, we are willing to pay a price for every life that was savagely abducted. Have we learned our lesson that the Hamas will never, ever, ever be open to any kind of negotiation, peace? It's nothing to do with freedom. Maybe there are a few, very few people in Israel that still believe that. I believe there must be a few, but the vast, vast, vast majority of my countrymen and women understand that Hamas seeks death and destruction, and they seek to open a holy war, a jihad against all the Jews in the world. They say it openly.
Yes, well, go ahead. Not to interrupt you, but there's no other charter, Ruth, that calls for y'all's destruction. It ain't just one or two sentences. It's their entire charter. Go ahead.
Exactly. Not only the charter, you didn't interrupt me, you emphasize exactly the point. Not only the charter, but just in case somebody didn't understand or really couldn't understand, because it's actually difficult to truly comprehend that these people are willing to perpetrate these deeds. And we Israelis are anything but naive.
Right.
And we couldn't fathom, honestly, people couldn't even comprehend what they had done. It was that bad. Now we understand there's no naivete about this deal. None. There is a price. Are we willing to pay the price? The majority of the country is willing. Are we happy with it? Do we trust them?
Right.
The answer is very, very, very clear. No.
Yeah. And that's understandable. And again, you know, we're over here in America. I think most Americans feel the same conflict, and because there's American hostages that are included in that 204.
Of course.
And we want people back safe. And I'm with you 1,000,000%. Look, they're manipulating. Everything Hamas does is manipulation. Look, it's just like, putting everything, the hospital situation, the act itself. And, I want to go back to the barbarism. This struck a chord, I think, in the world. I hope it did. And I'm afraid it didn't. It should have. This was not some kind of an attack on military installations or in some kind of look. I'm a lover of Israel. I've studied the history of this nation. I'm deeply respectful of your former boss, Shimon Peres. I thought he was a tremendous man. I know none of these prime ministers have been perfect. None of our presidents over here are perfect, but they have led Israel through a time of great turmoil. And unlike any other nation, you all have basically been fighting for survival from day that the nation was recreated in 1948. It's not like y'all had a lot of times where y'all can just sit back and take a deep breath and say everything's fine because your enemies around you have wanted you destroyed. And
if you allow me, I'll even strengthen that half sentence that you said. I'll go ahead and strengthen that and say that not only did we survive or fight to survive from day one, we actually faced something that has strengthened us and made us so resilient. I feel that we are now fighting a war not just for Israel, not just for the Jewish people, but for the normal, free world.
Yes.
And it's not a cliche. These people say openly that they wish to overtake the West. I cannot fathom how people in the West don't see that. Anybody who speaks Arabic, and there are plenty of non-Arabs, having this speciality and understanding, they say it plainly, unashamed. This is the issue, to take over the West, to kill the infidels.
Yes. Without a doubt. And again, that was what struck me with the barbarism of this attack. This was different. This felt different. I remember waking up that Saturday morning, because it was Saturday when it happened here.
Right.
And I woke up and I thought I was literally, I know, it was a surreal dream when I was watching TV and the news reports were coming in. And then as the days clicked on and the months and the weeks have clicked on, and we're a month and a half now, almost going on 2 months from this event. And we've seen these atrocities, and we've seen the brutalness, the horrific rape, the horrific children, the burning of the babies. And then I look at these protests. I look at these colleges over here in America, and I look at not just here in America, but all over this world where people have this, I don't know what it is, Ruth. I don't know if it's just a blindness. I don't know if it's just evil in their own hearts. They can't clarify evil anymore. Like when a society cannot clarify what's good and evil, when we can't look at a baby being beheaded or a baby being put in an oven as evil, we got a far greater problem than anything Israel had on October the 7th. We got a society problem, and we're facing complete breakdown of everything we know as human beings, as humanity, because this was an attack on humanity. It wasn't just an attack on Israel. It was an attack on Chris McDonald. It was an attack on all of us. But it was brutal. It was brutal.
If I may even go further and say that we need to get to the bottom of exactly what you're saying, because the moral clarity here is obviously not getting through.
Absolutely.
Now, there are very many immigrants that are perhaps the crux or the instigation of a lot of the demonstrations, not all of them, and not all the Muslim immigrants have the sentiment, but one sees that a lot of the demonstrations in Europe, in Australia, in other parts of the Western world where democracies exist, because where there are undemocratic countries like in the Gulf area or the Middle East, they're not allowed to demonstrate. They're not allowed. The Muslim Brotherhood are outlawed because these countries know what they are. In Jordan, in Egypt, and other countries, the Muslim Brotherhood is outlawed, and Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood, they're one. Now, Erdogan, for example, in Turkey, a very significant, strong military regional power, is Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar is an ally of the Western world and of the United States. There are many bases of the United States in Qatar. Qatar is paying a lot of money to a lot of the campuses you're talking about. And then one asks oneself, who actually pays for the formation of these caucuses, these pro-Palestinian caucuses? If we check where the money comes from, that's where the problem originates.
Wow.
Can we legislate to cut that off? Can we raise awareness to make this cut off? Is this a spontaneous event? I honestly doubt it, even though there are many more propagators of this issue, of this rhetoric, of this pro-Palestinian issue. And, you know, people chant from the river to the sea, free Palestine will be free. There was not one soldier in the Gaza Strip since 2005.
That's right.
There was not only one soldier, there was not one Jewish person, human being. I'll go even further than that. You know that we dug out the graves of people who died and were buried, Jewish burials in Gaza Strip, and we removed them in fear that they will be hurt or tempered with to Israel. So there was not even a Jewish bone in Gaza in 2005. So free of what? And people don't know that. People don't know that. Young people are now chanting in the US the Bin Laden letter.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that. That is so ugly and it's hateful. And I got two questions along those lines. First of all, look, it's disgusting to me. I'm an American citizen. As I said, I'm here, and I told another person from Israel here this recently. You all are talking to me, looking in, looking out. I'm looking out, looking in, and I think that we're in agreement that these things just blow our mind, and it really is disgusting. It's hurtful. It's just unreal. But from Israel's point of view, your point of view, when y'all see these things in this country, how does it make Israel feel to see her cherished enemy, this not enemy, but her cherished friend, do this and allow these things, and the world at large? It's got to sting a little bit in light of the barbarism and the death and the carnage that you all are suffering. Because, Ruth, these things leave wounds. These kind of attacks, again, this was not some military excursion into southern Israel, my friend. This was a brutal assault on people, kids, women. I've never, in my lifetime, I've never seen the atrocity that was committed in the name of terrorism. And the second question is a follow-up is this, and it's a little bit more complicated. Do you believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to see this through to the end of Hamas? Because I know that Hamas is not the only issue. You've got an ideology that is basically over this Gaza Strip. It's over the West Bank too. It's over Gaza. It's over this entire Palestinian mess that's over there. And you get rid of one terrorist group, I'm not so sure there ain't going to be another one that's going to rise up in its place. But do you feel like he's not going to bow to international pressure not to see this through? Because I feel like he's got to drive these people out somehow or another and drive them away, because it's going to happen again if he don't. That's just, again, that's my take from here. What's yours from there?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your passion, because the fact that you care so much is very heartwarming. And it's not a given. It doesn't go unnoticed. I think that many in the Christian world that support Israel are a very big strength for Israel. You spoke of the others, and does it sting? Of course it stings. You know, sometimes we sort of catch ourselves, and I'm talking about left-wingers and right-wingers in Israel. You know, all those people that were basically carnaged, massacred, raped, they were almost all on the left, and some of them on the far left, because that is the type of population that lives in those villages near the Gaza Strip. Of course, it made absolutely no difference to the terrorists.
No, it didn't.
Nor did it make a difference to them to shoot at Muslims and kidnap Muslims that are amongst the 240 kidnapped civilians. So obviously life matters absolutely nothing to those savages. And then you ask yourself, okay, but how can the world not see that? So I think, again, one, we see in the very clear standing of the current president of the United States, and I must say this honestly, a very big gift and a very big friendship. I feel, and again, I don't care for politics. It's not my business.
I'm with you.
American politics is not my field, and it almost makes no difference to me whether it's a Republican administration or Democratic. The Hamas chose the timing. It is what it, it is what it is.
Great point.
And I thank the Lord that whatever sentiment stands behind that decision by President Biden, and I believe it is faith-oriented. I believe something from within, from his education from a young age regarding Israel and Zionism and the Holy Land. It has to do somehow with that, which can unite us as people, whatever our political opinion is. That is something that God had sent us, because obviously this is very critical for Israel. Now, and this is key. Why? Because it's not a local war. It's not a local war. The war is masterminded by Iran.
Yes.
If anybody doesn't understand that, I'm glad to explain. It's masterminded by Iran, no matter what they say. The Hamas is the first step. There was a roadmap. Can you imagine a roadmap of death? First, in the Gaza Strip in the south, this is an arm of Iran, the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Second, in the West Bank, there too, the Fatah, led by Abu Mazen, so-called president of the Palestinian people. I say so-called because it has very little support from the street. Hamas is growing stronger there, and they are encouraged, funded, trained by our dear friend Iran again. So is the Islamic Jihad in the West Bank as well. I remind, for those who didn't hear in the beginning, I live 5 minutes away from there, even though I'm in Israel proper. It just has a very narrow waist, Israel, and I'm in that waist in the northern part of the Sharon. So in the West Bank, we have exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing, not to mention the incitement and the education and the indoctrination, which is the same in Gaza as it is in the PA, the Palestinian Authority. Then the third part of that roadmap is Hezbollah, another arm of Iran, this time a Shiite arm and a very prestigious, in the eyes of Iran, arm, much more well funded and trained and armed, but still an arm. And we have Iranian militias in Syria. We have Iranian militias in Iraq. And we have the Houthis in Yemen. All of this effort, why is Iran putting so much effort into this? Why? Why? For what? To free Palestine? To free Gaza, in which there are no soldiers? Why is Iran doing this? Iran is imperialistic.
Yes, they are.
Iran, absolutely. Iran wants hegemony over the region. What better way to do that than to destroy Israel? Because that's the only thing Arabs agree on. It's the only thing they agree on. There's infighting amongst Arab nations from the beginning of history. The one lowest common denominator is their hatred of Israel. We are talking about Shiites and Sunnis.
Exactly right.
We are talking about Farsi, who are not Arabs in Iran. They are not Arabs. They look down upon the Arabs. The Arabs, such as Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, they are pawns for them. Pawns in a chess game in which they move around the pawns without getting hurt on their own territory in order to move around, wobble around, and unbalance the current order led by the United States of America. By the way, they say this as well. They spoke about Hamas, that the next step is the West Bank, then Hezbollah. They call all the Muslims in the world to take up arms in this holy jihad against every single Jew in the world, and then the infidels, meaning everybody and anybody who is not Muslim. They say it.
Exactly right. No, that's exactly right. And it leads me to we got about 15 minutes here, and I got a couple of quick questions, but my first question tied into exactly what you just said. It has been, I've followed this for 20 years now, this idea, this fallacious idea that originated in this country when Bush Sr. claimed, and again, I'm with you. It's not a political statement. This is just because he was a Republican. But this idea that the reason what you just described is a complete beautiful picture of what Israel's facing. But America's idea back then was, well, if Israel will just give up more of its land to these Palestinians and these folks that want y'all into the sea and everything, that there would be peace in the Middle East. And as I've watched this over 20 years, it's never worked, no matter what happens. And I've watched what's happened since October the 7th. And I had some friends that have told me that while people in Israel at one time may have thought that sentiment is no longer at the forefront. I think they're coming to the realization that this ain't about land, Ruth. This is about the destruction of the nation of Israel. As you hit it square on the head, they don't care about this land. They want Israel gone. And I think my question to you is that beginning to sort of take root in Israel, that people understand that more now, that they know that this land for peace has always been a fallacy. It's never going to create peace.
Chris, you're frozen there. I cannot hear you.
Is that better now? You're frozen too. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're back. I'm sorry.
Hi again.
Go ahead. Did you hear my question?
I didn't. You were frozen. My apologies.
No, you're fine. What I was saying was that we were talking about the land for peace, and that these folks that, especially in this country, that have pushed this idea for nearly 25 years, that if Israel will give their land away, then that threat that you just described beautifully is going to go away. And Ruth, there's no way that this threat is about land. It's never been about land. They want the destruction of the nation of Israel. And my question that was attached to what you were saying is, do you believe that the people of Israel are sort of coming around to that understanding now more than they've ever come to it, that this has never been about the land? And no matter what you give, I mean, I was looking at a map last night. We were doing a show by myself, and I showed him a map. And I mean, if you look at Israel, it's like that big, and then you've got this whole area of Arab land, and yet we're to believe that if Israel gives up more of this little piece of land, that somehow or another these Arabs are going to just have great peace with the Israelis. It's not going to happen. But I'm just curious how you feel about that.
So first of all, there's almost I don't even know how to call this process, but there is a slow disintegration of the left over the years in Israel, saying two-state solution, meaning two states for the two people. But what happened on October 7th, I believe, it hasn't been checked yet, but I believe almost beyond doubt that whatever there was left is not there anymore. Or if it is, and I believe there are a few people here and there are very, very, very much on the margins, because it's very difficult to remain optimistic vis-a-vis the thoughts and the aspirations of people, if one can call them that, after they do such things. But if you allow me, and you also asked before, will Netanyahu go through? So I'm not an expert on Netanyahu, and I also want to be frank. I belong to the Blue and White Party. The former Minister of Defense, Benny Gantz, who is currently in the Unity War Cabinet, helping Israel because of the moment of emergency. So it's not like I belong to Netanyahu's party. However, there is an understanding, a deep understanding, and it's not only Netanyahu. Almost throughout the political parties, even those, the few small, teeny tiny ones on the left, and I'm talking about the Jewish parties, because the Arab parties within the Israeli parliament, that's a different story, that, you know, there's a bit of a problem with the narrative of the two-state solution and the goodwill on the other side, and that we need to go all the way this time.
Absolutely.
Because the Hamas says, for those people who tend to be more optimistic than pessimistic, they say, if we get the chance, we'll do this again and again. Openly, unashamedly. They say, so why not listen to them? I mean, there's a limit to how one can, you know, draw oneself under the sand and pretend that this doesn't happen. So there is a deep inherent understanding amidst a very wide variety of political parties, not only Netanyahu, even on the left. Whether he will have the strength or not to do it, that is a difficult question. Yes. But in most people's opinions, this is a must. And I'm not a far-right political person in Israel, and I'm telling you, this is a must. There's no question about it. But you know what? Killing the 40,000 Hamas operatives in Gaza and 8,000 Islamic Jihad operatives, that's not enough. Why? Because there is a whole educational system of horrid, insightful indoctrination, teaching kids to absolutely hate.
Right.
And to be ready to die for whatever it is that this cause means to them. And they teach this in almost, pardon me for sounding melodramatic, but it is what it is, a brainwashing manner. It's in the mosques, it's in the summer camps that they are trained to be soldiers and hate. It's in some very, very religious mosques that they bring 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 13-year-old boys into open graves to feel close to the ground because they are here on earth to die. This is Hamas and Islamic Jihad.
It is.
Now, in the West Bank, maybe they don't bring them to the graves, but it's the same school system. And the interesting thing is as well, and this, Chris, is important to understand, Jordan is the same. Jordan, a very important country with which Israel has a peace treaty and a strategic no-war situation. Likewise with the United States, it's an island of peace, and the leadership there is interested in the stability. But there are 70% Palestinians in that country studying the same syllabus. So no matter how many terrorists we kill and how many of our boys give up their lives, if we don't change from the very beginning until the very end of that indoctrination in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in Jordan, it makes absolutely no difference. And that is what America needs to understand. On the Democratic side and on the Republican side, write to the Congress people, the senators, raise the voices and call for the stopping the funding by the UN, by USAID, by European EU stopped in 2024. Can you imagine? Even the EU had declared that it will stop funding because of this.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
Well, it's unreal. And I heard Bernie Sanders out there, which Bernie's far left, and he's saying that Israel's got to change their fundamental philosophy for them to get more money from us. And I want to ask Bernie Sanders, I want to ask all these people, Ruth, what philosophy is that? To survive, not to have barbaric attacks, run over roughshod your country? I mean, to not have terrorists burn your babies and cut your babies' heads off and rape women and destroy families. I mean, what philosophy does he want us to change? I mean, for goodness sake, it doesn't make any sense. I got one question. This is going to be a toughie, and this is the part. I read an article 2 days ago that within those terrorists that were basically rampaging through southern Israel, there were 10-year-olds that were egging the Hamas terrorists on. And it goes to your point about the ideology. But this goes beyond the 10-year-olds. This goes to the adults. There was a poll yesterday that was taken that said that 59 point something percent of Palestinian people, I'm not talking about the terrorists here, we're not talking about the operatives, we're talking about just common everyday folks. 668 of them, they polled them. And 59.3%, they said they extremely supported, they put extremely supported what Hamas did. And
Yes.
7.9% said they somewhat supported. So that, you add those figures up, that's almost 82%. We hear the big drumbeat over here with these protests is that, well, we got to protect the Palestinian people from this big bad bear Israel. And Chris is just a South Georgia guy. I'm just a Southern boy. I live in Tennessee. We look at things from common sense things. We don't look at things like you said. We're not political. We just look at things from common sense perspective. And I look at the Palestinian people that actively support this. And I look at that 89% of them believe this was a good idea, what Hamas did. And then you're going to come to me and tell me that I've got to be worried. And again, it's not that I don't have concern for the Palestinian people. I have great concern for them. They put this organization over them. But if you're going to support what they're doing, I'm sorry, if you live by the sword, I'll use a biblical term, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And they put themselves in this place, Ruth, but it's got to make you just head shake that that's not operatives that's listening to that and saying that. That's the people. And then we're to believe that Israel is, if they go in there and try to run these terrorists out, that Israel's trying to hurt the Palestinian people. They're not. But look, the Palestinian people is not Israel's friend. And that's just, again, that's just Chris's take. I'll give you 5 minutes. We got about 5 minutes to wrap us up on that. Am I pretty accurate in that description?
You're very accurate. And my suggestion for a solution is to do with the 3 entities that I mentioned before. The 2-state solution is a little bit unlikely because of exactly what you had described. We have the Gaza Strip, which is currently on the news and the focus of our attention. We need to clean out the operatives and bring back the hostages. Once we do that, it's going to be mostly in ruins. It will need to be reconstructed. Reconstruction, the United States is talking about bringing in a kind of a different Palestinian Authority. We cannot feel comfortable bringing in a Palestinian Authority which allows what is happening in the West Bank to happen again in Gaza. Because again, we're talking about many incited people. We're talking about an educational system that's very hateful, lots of antagonism towards Israel, the Jews, and so on. So what I feel needs to be done, the Gaza Strip needs to be rebuilt logistically, civil rebuilding, but also the entire educational system, as I had said, and of course militarily, to make sure that none of this incitement, because there are already a generation of children born to kill Jews. I mean, right. That's what I thought. So this needs, they need to be re-educated, but at the same time supervise that what they had been taught until now won't actually happen, and reconstruct the whole of Gaza. But also, in terms of education and cleaning of terrorism, it has to be done in the West Bank as well. And Jordan is a sovereign country. At least the educational system in Jordan needs to be changed from A to Z. And this, Chris, and whoever is listening, is something that America can do.
Exactly right, my friend. No, I'm with you totally. And I'll end it on this. We can't escape that poll. That to me, I think most people always understood that. Most people understood that the Palestinian people were not all innocent in this deal. And again, I'm not blaming them totally for what happened, but you can't escape the fact, Ruth, they were cheering it on. And if
They
you
were cheering, they were handing candy out. A lot of them
absolutely,
came in. A lot of the boys came in on bicycles, and this was photographed. I mean, there's
yes,
documentation, and did horrific things to civilians. Uh, and I'm not even talking about stealing things, which is already unimportant. I'm talking about raping, killing,
absolutely.
and burning, and things that are really horrific.
My friend, listen, our time is out, but please promise me that you'll come back. This has been so good. I could sit here and talk to you for 3 hours, and this has just gone by like this, and it usually does when interviews are good. And I want to give you a chance. I know that you're on social media in some ways. Where's the best place that can people follow you and get your updates? Because I see you on Facebook, and I share some of your things out with your videos, and I do appreciate your perspective deeply. I really do. And it's such an honor to have you tonight. Where can we find you on the internet and people can find you?
So you just need to, in Google, put my name, R-U-T-H, Ruth Wasserman, Wasserman, Lande, Lande. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, on everything. I write a lot every week on the Jerusalem Post. I write different papers. I interview very often in English as well. So one can see a lot of the things. For example, yesterday I did a very long interview to the South African Broadcasting Corporation. It was quite a challenging interview, but I fear no question, none, because the truth is on my side.
Yes, it is, Ruth. And you have been beautifully versed in this tonight. Like, I'm grateful for you. And I want to say this to you publicly. And I speak for my audience, and I speak for many, many people in this nation. It may not be seen with the protest, but I will tell you, I truly believe that a majority of the people in this nation, we stand in solidarity with the nation of Israel tonight. Our hearts are broken, just as y'all's hearts are broken. It's what we've seen, and we love you as a nation, and we are here. That's one of the reasons why I have people on like you right now, because I want to hear the truth about this. There's so much propaganda. There's so many lies out there. There's so many misinformations, twisting of things, and people like you are invaluable to keep us grounded in what's going on. And I deeply appreciate you being with me tonight. And
Thank you so much.
Please come back again.
Bye-bye.
Ruth Lande, everybody. We'll be right back. Stay with me. Ruth, give me a minute. And we want to thank Miss Ruth Wasserman Lande for being with us tonight. What a great lady. We appreciate her. I'm going to come over here just for a few minutes, folks. Listen, I've got a lot to say about this, but I don't want to tarnish anything that Ruth said tonight. And because Chris is not going to be as calm and as have a lot of decorum with as Ruth handled it tonight. Chris is a little fired up. I've got We the People shirt on. I have witnessed this weekend some vile stuff coming from the airways of Twitter, and today it just keeps getting worse. And this misinformation that we were talking about, we're going to address tonight. We're going to try to get a guest on the phone. I'm waiting to hear back from them here in a minute. It's 9:32 roughly. If you'll give me about 15 minutes, I'm going to shut this part of the show down tonight with no questions. We're going to come back, and I'm going to do a little afterthought program on this Monday night by myself, and I will take your questions and your comments. Now, please, these comments are on the show and the subject matter tonight. We're not going to be asking faith questions and questions that are off topic. We're going to take your questions as it relates to what Ruth was talking about, this hostage situation, and your comments about the hostages. And we'll be back in about 15 minutes because I'm going to show you some things that are being said out there tonight. This Greta Thunberg, this social climate midget hellion who just needs a good ass whipping, to be frank with you. That is an example of a child that just needs a good ass whipping from their parents. but because they've allowed her to become the face of the climate change, well, Miss Ruth is, or Greta is not Ruth, but Miss Greta has taken on a new role of anti-Semite tonight, and she has gone full-fledged anti-Semite, saying that Zionism needs to be destroyed, as if Greta Thunberg has any knowledge about Zionism, what it means, in her freaking pinky. She does not. But she's acting like an expert, like a lot of anti-Semites are acting like they're tonight. We're going to talk about that. I need to stop talking before I get myself in trouble and ruin this great interview with Ruth Wasserman Lande, who I deeply enjoyed, and I really hope she'll come back and be with us. I believe she will. And we've got some other guests coming in the next week or two, and we'll talk more about that on the afterthought when I see you in about 15 minutes. Give me about 15. We're grateful that you've been with me tonight, and we'll talk more about Ruth Wasserman Lande's interview right after this in about 10 to 15 minutes on our Monday night afterthought special, McFiles late night special, okay? We appreciate you being with me tonight, and our thanks and our prayers to the nation of Israel tonight and Miss Ruth Wasserman Lande, the former advisor. She was Shimon Peres's right-hand advisor, and did a great job tonight on the network. I hope you enjoyed her. I sure did. And the discussion. I'll see you in about 15, okay? God bless till then. McDonald out on this Monday night for now, but we shall return. Be blessed.